Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel simply is Discerning What is True. Today is the 17th day of November 2025. Reading from a particular book called Psychology and Kabbalah. Chapter 24 is the chapter I'm reading now, which is called Madness. The difference between neurosis and psychosis is that the neurotic is aware of the psychological conflict and the psychotic is not. This marks a quite different order of psychopathology. Conflict within the psyche is not unusual, as various elements struggle for ascendancy, balance, and compensation. In most people, the tension between different needs, ideas, and emotions can be accommodated, but in those who have a basic imbalance because of a trauma or a fixation, the situation can approach a critical point in which the psyche cannot maintain a operational level. Quote, symptom formation, end quote, is a warning that such a possibility is present. For example, most phobias are devices to avoid facing a breaking point. Fear of dogs, that is, for instance, may guard the person from their own savage anger, which they refuse to acknowledge, while agoraphobia or fear of open spaces might relate to the feeling of being exposed and thereby highly vulnerable, which could lead to an uncontrollable panic. The list of phobias is enormous, but their function is the same, that is, to protect the person from themselves. Seen in tree terms, that is, a phobia is when the left band side, or left hand side, I should say, of the psyche holds the right in check. For example, exacting hard restrains a wild nezah, while a severe chavara ties down a open, expansive hesed, and a heavy banal blocks a errant hoklum. And the left pillar did not have the power. If the left pillar did not have the power of fear, then the right column might explode in a disintegration, of sanity. So the person believes, hence a phobia, which means fear. Between the neurotic and the psychotic is the hysteria. In such individuals, internal conflicts are relieved by conversion reaction, end quote. In this process, the problem is relayed by symptoms resonance from the tree of the psyche to that of the body, so that psychologically blindness or deafness becomes physical. Here, the Yasada ego transfers what it cannot face through God and the side pillars into the corresponding triads of the body tree. This has a twofold, quote, payoff, end quote. First, the individual avoids the problem. And as a secondary gain, end quote. Special concessions are invents, or I should say invents, from others. This is the pattern of many hypochondriacs whose symptoms often have no physical reality. Such a discovery gave rise to the notion that mental illness was not always organic, as had been believed. Madness is a relative term. For example, there are many people who, although quite insane, can nevertheless run a job or even a country, provided that they are not placed under stress. If a critical situation does occur, it can break the USADA defense system and precipitate a psychological crisis. Example of this is the manic depressive who oscillates between the side pillars. As long as neither extreme is reached, the integrity of the tree is maintained. But should circumstances create an excessive dose of success or failure, one side of the tree will overthrow the counterbalance of the other, perhaps triggering a period of uncontrollable mania or deep, strict suicidal depression. For example, an eminent scholar with a very clever Hod was humiliated in a major intellectual battle. This caused the loss of his esotic image of himself as a brilliant academic. He was so unhinged that he was so unhinged that his left pillar collapsed, and he broke down in wild outbursts that released all the power of an unrestrained right pillar in an insane orgy of sex and drink before he burned himself out. In some cases, the breakdown could occur in the vertical balance of id and the superego idea when a person oscillates between ultra introversion, that is being introverted, and extroverted. Such instances may be just personality disorders, or they may be deeply pathological. Here it should be noted that not all psychopaths are in asylums. Many quite famous people come into this class. The highly decorated soldier could be a homicide killer, while the sex symbol film star might be a symphonic who, like the hero, was in just a place where their madness fitted in with what was needed. Many historical and renowned figures were psychopaths. Hitler, a megalomaniac, was not recognized until it was too late. Figure 36, madness. Astrology gives an insight into different mental diseases. A heavily afflicted Saturn in a birth chart will sometimes stimulate depression, while a ill position Mars can generate a violent disposition. A stimulating configuration, I should say, focus, say, on Venus has been known to create a tendency for uncontrolled sexuality. In the front piece, that is, of a book that is shown here, various combinations have related to melancholy, dementia, and mania. This data was collected over many centuries, and some modern psychotherapists still find their astrological explanations relevant based upon the 17th century. Psychosis appears at the point when the ego no longer relates events in the exterior world to what is happening in the psyche. This might take the form of inflation, in which the Yasada image is blown up to be the king of the universe, or deflated into being a non-person. The mechanism of this is that when an interconflict occurs, various aspects of the psyche splits off in order to avoid a major confrontation within the tree. Such an operation, however, cannot be successful if the Yasada foundation of the ego is impaired. In this quote-unquote situation, the tree is distorted as the flows between the pivotal position of Tipharel and the adjacent triads and side of Sepharel are pushed out of balance. Over a long period, this can cause a gradual fragmentation, or in some circumstances, a dramatic loss of the cohesiveness of the psyche and psychotic breakdown. In this, the pillars, Sephirah and Triad, release their hold, and the id, nefesh, and all the energy locked up in the complexes and concepts break out or implode within the person. If the process of disintegration is not fatal, then a partial recovery can be expected, as the tree will always seek to heal itself by finding some lower point of operational equilibrium, such as is found in many vagrant personalities. If, however, madness runs its full course, then sometimes only a fragmented shell of a person will be left, with unrelated parts of a burnout psyche ticking over, which expresses themselves in strange gestures and speech until death intervenes and grants the possibility of a new start at a later point in history. I'm getting a glare on my computer screen here. Sorry, folks. The various kinds of psychosis indicate which pillars, triads, and separol, are being affected in the psychological tree. Paranoia, I should say, for example, can be a heavy combination of Ra and the super-ego triads. This imbalance allows the mordido impulses into the ego, which diverts the threat to its stability by projecting it out onto others. Some paranoia people hear voices abusing them. These come from beyond the limited line of hot and nezah and has arise from the split-off and conflicting segments in the side triads. Catatonia, schizophrenia, is a clear example of being locked on the left-hand pillar as the person takes up a stiff and often bizarre posture in order to check the violent dynamic that could be released with devastating effect by the right-hand column. This occurs beyond Yasod, is out of commission, and very little contact with reality above or below is perceptible. Indeed, it has been noticed that such inaccessible patients had a eerie other-world atmosphere about them. From a Kabbalistic view, this is because the Yasod-Da connection is loosened with the inevitable loss of physical vitality and substance as the lower face of the psyche separates out from the upper face of the body, leaving an empty ego that lives at the ethereal level and only responds mechanically to external stimuli. Taking a specific case, let us look at the process in detail. X, end quote, was a young woman who feared engulfment should she become involved with anyone. Retreat protected her from the outer world, but this led to an impoverishment of the psyche, which entered a vacuum in a already sparse inner place. In tree tenon terms, that is, Yasod prevented the emotional and conceptual triads from being filled out by experience. Lack of external stimulus, I should say, diversified her because there was nothing to keep the lower face of the psyche active. Slowly, a kind of petrification occurred in the persona, which was compensated for by a buildup of fantasy. That is, the body, Da, started to separate out from the psyche, Yasod. This gave rise to the simple formation of feeling disembodiment. The trend was countered by the ego, which constructed an acceptable picture of her situation. This was quite satisfactory, for she was the narcissistic mistress of her Yuzara world. However, the self at Tipperell saw the danger, and she had many dreams about dying, being on a desert island, and disintegrating. She ignored the warnings. Meanwhile, her Yasod built up a quite false image of herself and her place in the world. This was the beginning of insanity. Some people have been known to get well if they can recognize their situation, but alas, many wander between the worlds, often quite willfully asserting that their image of existence is correct, until at last fate brings them to crisis and they are given the choice to be healed or to become fully insane. From a Kabbalistic view, madness is seen as a rejection of how things are. Indeed, the hallmark of many neurosis and psychosis is a willfulness that must have its own way, even if life is telling them that they are wrong. The phenomenon of madness is the result of a process, not its cause. Providence designs each life to develop an individual, and insanity may be a last resort of fate as it attempts to prevent damage to the spirit. Many psychoses deliberately disregard life's laws in order to impose their egocentric version of reality. The Kabbalists perceive such events as a result of free will being misused, even though The side pillars continually edge the individual back into the center of their tree. Everyone has to learn their lessons in order to develop and place their part in the universe correctly. Some choose not to, and they accumulate a massive karma, resulting in the hell of madness called in Kabbalah the pit of Gehenna, where all those, quote, dead or alive who deliberately oppose reality reside. Most of us do not get to this point, although we may come close to the major crisis that always occurs of crucial moments in our lives. This is the thing we will look at next. So that is our conclusion there of madness. Pretty sad, isn't it? Very sad when you start reading this. It's like someone decides that it's not going to. They don't see anything wrong. Their will becomes so obstructive. Okay, well, I won't take any more time here. Again, that was chapter 34. Thank you for being with us. And the next chapter will be 35, be crisis. All right, thank you very much for being with us. You have a good day.